right, so I think we are started. Hi, I am Carrie Budzinski, and this is the second installment of Vote.Run.Serve's Conversations about Democracy. And the key to democracy is voting, and it's something that I'm very excited about, very passionate about. So I'm very excited to talk to you about it today because our 2020 election on Tuesday, November 3rd, is the most important election any of us will have an opportunity to participate in. No matter what side you are on with the election, all the issues are on the table, from the environment to our judges and court systems, to our foreign policy, our schools, our public health, and human rights. All the issues are on the table, and we all need to vote. We pride ourselves in America and our democracy, but let me tell you, our voting records are pretty sad. Our last election presidential election in 2016, 55% of eligible voters went to the polls. Since the Civil Rights Voting Act passed in 1965, which really made it so everyone can vote, the highest election turnout was in 1968 for 60%, and in 2008, 57% of the population voted. That's eligible people who voted. That is not good numbers for one day that has so much importance. And non-presidential election years, those numbers are even lower. So we need to do better. Fortunately, voting is easier now than ever because you don't even need to leave your home to do it. You can vote from home, and we're going to talk about that later. But I want to impress upon everyone to vote. And to the people who feel like I don't like who I'm voting for, that's why I started this. You have so much power in not only being able to vote, but also deciding who you vote for. First of all, there's a lot of names on the ballot. So even if you don't like one of the names, I'm sure there are some that you would like. If you research the candidates, if you get to know them, which so many of them you can personally get to know, as we have and will continue to talk to people who hold elected office, but also you can run. You can encourage other people to run. Hi, Wafa and Lauren and Rachel and other friends. All of you should and can run for office, and I know you do a great job. So that's what this is all about. This is why I started Vote.Run.Serve, and I want to just jump right in. Sherry Gao is our first guest for the evening, and she has been working the polls for over 2 decades now. I just registered with our clerk's office this week so that I can volunteer to also work the polls. And it's going to be my first time doing so. So, Sherry, thank you for joining us tonight. And please tell me, what can I expect on Election Day?
It's going to be a busy day, I hope, because with this upcoming presidential one, we don't know how big it's going to be, how the turnout is going to be. So if you are able to help out, nonetheless, it's a great experience, really. Lots of learnings. If you are interested in learning a lot of new, interesting things, like how things is done, how things is work. I mean, that was new to me when about 20 years ago when I first got involved, and I since then still enjoy learning those different things. So yeah.
So I know you have to. Polls open at 6, or is that when people are expected to be there, correct?
Yeah.
So you're a chairperson, so do you delegate the roles to newbies like me so that I know what task? I love voting, so I always go in person. All my elections, so I know what it looks like, but I don't know the back end.
Right. So I first started as the election inspector, and then so a couple of years later, I got promoted as a chairperson. That's how I got to know about how does the chairperson do the job. So basically, once you are a chairperson, so you basically have a list of all your co-workers who will be working with you. At least normally you will have at least 3 to 5 people, because we have to have at least from 2 different parties, right? And so, and that's what you would do is that you contact your the week before that weekends, we are supposed to call our poll workers, reminding them about where we're going to be, me, as well as what time you need to be there, because we all need to get sworn in. So I would have been already get sworn in by the deputy clerk or city clerk. So I'm all good. So I just need to make sure everybody is there by 6 a.m. So we can get things prepped up. We can get sworn in first, and then we can get things prepped up, set up the booth. And if you have tabulator, any other, making sure that your ballot number, all the ballots, everything is all good to go. And there's a phone number you need to make sure if there's a problem, you will contact the city clerk office right away. So all these prep work, and then getting ready for the 7 o'clock. That's when polls are open. So you are the chairperson. You have to be the person to announce it. Now I announce the polls are not open. And you may notice people are waiting in line. They're trying to come in. So basically, you're the one to kind of a go-to person, kind of a point of contact. But all the persons, the poll worker who will be working with you, may not be always feel comfortable with doing certain things. So it's up to you that you will work with everybody. If they're not familiar with, like we have electronic poll book, and so if they're not familiar with the electronic, this computer access, this is something you may work with. Just not everybody's tech savvy, right? And so you kind of have to dedicate, make sure, getting everybody a chance to rotate, and then getting helping each other to make sure the whole day runs smoothly, right?
And it's a long day, right? Because you have to stay until the end, like past 9 o'clock, correct?
Correct, you're right. So we will make sure that everybody gets a lunch break and then a dinner break, and you make sure that you at least have 3 people and at least 2 are 2 different parties. In case there is an issue, you have to have one from Republican, the other one from Democrats, and making sure everybody has their cell phone number just in case they need to contact the other chairperson. And they know who to contact if they have an issue. They need to contact city clerk's office, because some people may have to vote as provisional ballots or whatever issue could be, or they voted absentee and they now are here in person. They wanted to do it in person. So you will need to contact city clerk's office, making sure that they will have to spoil the absentee ballot, just to clarify. If this particular voter in front of you, that he or she did turning, his or her absentee ballots, right? So there's no dual voting or anything like that. Right, or if they moved or whatever issue. So you sort of, if you're a chairperson, when you go through your break, you want to make sure who you need to contact, making sure all this all being taken care of. And I always think about them. Hopefully, fingers crossed, nothing wrong with it.
Well, those are really issues that I'd never even considered. So it's so great to have that different perspective about what people who are working the polls experience. So my other question is just what motivated you to start doing this, and what keeps you doing it each election? Because you were telling me before we started, it's not just the May, November elections, you work primary elections as well. So what?
Yeah, so I first started it when I was just typical, voters just came into this the precinct just to try to cast my vote. So I was waiting in line, and then there was this lady who happened to be the chairperson, and I guess she has some issue with some of the voters and with the languages that she was needing help. So I speak quite a few different languages. So Assalamualaikum, hola, ¿qué tal? Terima kasih, anyhow.
I'm so jealous.
And so I was just like, she was asking, so who understands certain languages? Can I need some helper, interpreter? And I was standing in line, so, oh, I do. So she said, oh, can I have you come over? And so she asked me, what party are you with? And I would say, well, I don't have any particular party that I'm affiliated with. I'm only a taxpayer. Am I still able to help? She said, yeah, you can. I'm like, oh, okay. So I didn't have any party declare. I was just only a taxpayer, right?
So the taxpayer party then. I saw that on
I thought I had to have a party declare. Yeah. And then so she said, she asked for my contact information, and she said, can I try to call you? And that was kind of an instance that I was like, sure, I'll be happy to help you, and if you hopefully you don't have any other issue. And then so then a couple weeks later, I got this email, or not email, a letter from the city clerk office just to appreciate me, and then wanted to see if I would join their, as a part one of the, election inspector. So I was excited, and I talked to my husband. I go, wow, what do I do? This is new to me. And then my husband just very encouraging, it's like, you give it a try, you should, I said, okay. So I'm like, set up, and then I had to go through all the training, right? So, and I always like to learn and like to be challenged, So I see all this manual, the election inspector manual. Like, oh, wow, this is a lot of stuff to learn. Great. Okay, I can do this. Okay. All right, I'll give it a try. And so it's I want to sharpen my brain. So I'm like, okay, I like to study textbook. When give me the textbook, I'll read it. And I passed the test, and I become a certified election inspector. And here I go. I got involved in one of the smaller elections, which is a good one. Which was a good one. It's a smaller election. So then the next one is a big one, which is the gubernatorial one. I'm like, whoa, this is big. So I was working as a floater. It was kind of a fun, since I don't have to be like the chairperson, but I'm just kind of observing, helping out. And so I was just like, this is so cool, but I was so tiresome, feeling so tiresome after a whole day because I didn't get enough of sleep. The day before, I'm like, oh gosh, I learned my lesson well. I need plenty of sleep. So that's my tip. You want to make sure you get plenty of sleep. Yeah, because the poll don't. Yeah, because you have to at least hang in it until after polls are. I think we close at 8, and after that, you still have to run your tally sheet, generate report, right? So you get about an hour or so afterwards. So it's like about almost like a 12 hours. It could be more than 12 hours. Oh, well, it's definitely more than 12 hours.
Yeah. Well, I certainly feel more prepared after this conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time to give me some insight on what to expect on election day, working the polls. And for anyone out there who's interested in doing this themselves, you can still register with your city clerk. So contact your city hall, city clerk's office. They can help get you the forms. So Sherry, thank you so much. I know you have work to get back to, so I appreciate you taking the time tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. Good luck, everyone. Good luck, Harry.
So, all right. Well, thank you, Sherry. And okay. Hopefully my phone is telling me it's warm, that it doesn't stop. But Nancy, thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. This is Nancy Wang with Voters Not Politicians, which is a nonprofit organization that is working to make sure that your vote counts at its, I think, I don't say that exactly right. All of our votes count. But with gerrymandering in particular, which I think is the essence of why this organization was started, it's to make sure that the way our congressional districts in particular are laid out, that you're not stuffing too many people of a certain party in one district and having crazy looking districts. So, but I'll let Nancy talk more about that. They're also running a VoteSafe program or campaign during this election about absentee and mail-in voting, which is obviously something that a lot of people are going to be doing. I'm going to be doing it for the first time ever because normally I go to the polls and don't work them. So I'm very excited to learn more about that process. She also wrote an awesome op-ed in Bridge magazine that was published earlier this summer, and I shared some quotes from it and some stats from it if you follow us on Facebook. But I'm excited to learn more. So Nancy, thanks for taking the time.
Of course, thanks for having me.
So yes, tell us about Voters Not Politicians and the work.
So Voters Not Politicians, we started in 2016, at the very end of 2016, because at that point, people had been covering in the national news about several states that really had been so heavily gerrymandered that, if you were a voter in the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, it really didn't matter whether you voted or not. Your vote didn't count. You were either living in a district that was so heavily Republican that that candidate would win no matter what, or so heavily Republican that if you're a Democrat, and you voted, there's no way that you could, vote in the candidate of your choice. And what we found was, we're just a bunch of regular Michiganders, and we just started doing a bunch of town halls, talking to other people like us who are concerned about this issue. And we found that, thousands and thousands of people all across the political spectrum were just as concerned as we were. And we ended up forming a movement of sorts, a real grassroots movement where we collected 428,000 signatures. We wrote a constitutional amendment. We put it on the ballot. We got over a bunch of legal challenges by people who either were politicians or who were, special interests who really were benefiting from gerrymandering. And we surmounted those, and then we put Proposal 2 on the ballot in 2018 to end gerrymandering in Michigan, and we won. So so that really was, it was incredible in a lot of ways, but it really showed, and I think it was just emblematic of like what a lot of people are feeling in a lot of the states now, where we feel like the political machine really has taken over, and then voters, our interests aren't being represented anymore. And so that was a really big first step for our state to kind of level the playing field, make it so that the democratic process works for us voters, regardless of party, and not the politicians. So that's how we got our name, Voters Not Politicians.
Yes, I know, and you guys just picked to kind of jump over VoteSafe for a second. It's partisan and nonpartisan, but the commissioners, what are they called, who are helping to redistrict?
Yeah, actually there's 13 commissioners. It's called a Citizens Redistricting Commission, instead of politicians drawing our maps, which is what happened before. And it's 13 commissioners, and they're actually having their first meeting tomorrow.
Oh, how exciting.
Yeah, so they meet for the first time, and everything has to be public, so it's going to be on the web. We can, watch them like talk with each other, and kind of we can give public input and testimony. People can give statements to the commission and kind of welcome them, and wish them luck. And so this is a really exciting week.
And so when do the new districts go into effect? 2022?
That's right. So there's going to be a whole year. It's right now it's kind of hard to think about 2021 November, but 2021 is going to be a really big year in terms of redistricting. Everybody, I hope, has filled out their census form, and so all of that, those numbers for the different states really determine how many congressional seats you have, for example. And it looks like Michigan's going to lose a congressional seat, so we have 13. Right now we have 14, so that means our maps really do have to change quite a bit. Now we have this really new process where we have the Citizens Commission, and Voters Not Politicians and other groups are going around and helping communities, kind of define who they are and draw their own boundaries so that they can show the commission, hey, these are the groups of people that, we have an interest. We want to be aligned so that we can vote a representative, who looks out for our interests. And that was never done before. It was kind of, you drew the lines for political reasons. And now the commission's going to draw lines so that people get represented by, the people they vote for, which is, of course, exactly how it's supposed to work.
Right. Yeah, but it's going to be so interesting to watch that process play out. Yeah. I'm excited, and it's going to be really interesting and fun. So
yeah, me too. And the good thing is we can watch it because everything is going to be transparent and public.
That is totally true. I will be sure to share tomorrow. Are you guys going to stream it live on your page?
Actually, the Secretary of State is going to stream it live.
Okay. I will make sure I stream it so everyone, if you follow Vote.Run.Serve, you can just check it from our page as well. Okay. So absentee voting, mail-in ballots, there's a lot of, I said earlier on my stories that it's just really lies that are being told right now about, the security, fraud. And so can you talk about that? Can you talk about kind of the history, or what is the difference between mail-in and absentee? That's something a lot of people hear, the two words being used, and feel like they're different. Maybe they are. You tell me.
I mean, up until recently, there was no distinction made, because it really is like there's no real distinction. Absentee just means that you're voting via a ballot, and you don't have to like actually be there in the polling place marking your ballot and having it fed in the machine. So instead, what you can do in Michigan, so the nice thing about 2018 was a lot of big things happened, and we had Proposal 2, but there was also Proposal 3 called Promote the Vote. And what it did was expanded Michiganders' voting rights, like all across our state. And so now every Michigander has the constitutional right to vote by absentee ballot, which is a great thing. I mean, not a great thing is the fact that we're in the middle of a COVID pandemic, and we would have never known. But right now, I mean, the fact that we all do have the right to vote absentee is huge, and it allows, you said you really like to vote in person, and I know a lot of people really do. There are people that, you know, I mean, everyone just kind of holds their right to vote sacred, right? And it means something to go to the polling place. And we recognize that. But what we're doing and what we're telling people is you have a choice. You know, a lot of people are doing, you know, they're staying very, very careful to stay at home, to not, you know, go out, even with social distancing. And so now they have a choice they can just go online and request an absentee ballot. They can get it in their mailbox, you know, and then absentee either means vote by mail, like you can send it back to your clerk by mail, you know, you can put a stamp on it, send it back via your inbox, your mailbox. Or you can go and after you filled it out, you put in the envelopes, and then you can drop that envelope at a drop box, you know, in your town. Or you can drop it off at your clerk's office, you know, and you could just, you know, hand it to the clerk's office and that way, you know, there's a lot of lies, like you were saying about, you know, whether it's going to get lost in the mail and there's all this uncertainty with the post office. And the thing about absentee voting though, is that you have you have ways to assure that, you know, you can like actually physically hand your ballot to the local clerk or a drop box if you'd like. And so it doesn't necessarily have to be vote by mail, but it can be something that's an alternative to voting in person. So that's really what we were trying to, you know, we're just trying to spread the message so people know they have the choice. And we think, I mean, we've already seen that a record number of people have been requesting their absentee ballots already. And we think that's a great thing. You know, we're hoping it means like bigger turnout overall. We're hoping it means like people stay safer because then there's going to be less crowding at the polling places. Yeah, and it's just more convenient for a lot of people, you know, because of family or transportation or, you know, and it's health protective, of course. So for all those reasons, we think it's great that people are making the choices that work for them.
And in your op-ed, you'd mentioned how Portland has been doing this for voting by mail for 20 years, and they're, what, 15 million votes and 15 fraud cases. Do you feel comfortable talking about fraud? I just feel like so many people feel this, you know, fraud question. And right. So if you feel comfortable talking about that, I think it's just something
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those things, and I think it's, you know, it's really discouraging. It's one of those things that, you know, the more you say it, like, doesn't mean that it's more true, right? In fact, it's a complete lie. I know we don't hear that very much, that word in the media for some reason. Like we say, you know, falsehood or, you know, it has no support in fact, but it actually, I mean, there has no support in fact. There are a lot of states like Colorado is a state, Utah, where they've been having vote by mail for decades. I mean, it's not like a radical idea. In fact, you know, they've shown that it's more efficient, you know, that you have a centralized system. People love it. You get a lot higher voter turnout because, you know, everyone wants the right to vote. It's, you know, sometimes it's whether you have access, right? I mean, we've seen across the country where there's various voter suppression efforts, and unfortunately they work and they prevent some people from voting. And so in these vote by mail states, it's kind of across the board that voters, you know, if you just talk to voters, they really, really support it. And there is no fraud. I mean, it's like, you know, in Michigan, if you are caught voting twice or, you know, impersonating someone else, it's a felony that's punishable by up to 4 years in prison. So it's not something that people will just do, even though I think, you know, for political reasons now, people are really attacking vote by mail in order to discourage people from exercising that right. And
often people who are also voting by mail themselves.
That's right, right? So that tells you something too. You know, it's good enough for me, but, you know, beyond you kind of thing. So I think, and I hope that voters really see through these kinds of like attacks. And it doesn't take much, you know, you just go to the media sources that you trust, and you very easily see like what are the actual facts. And the facts are that vote by mail is incredibly secure. It's efficient, and it allows more people to have access to their right to vote.
Now, so what do you want people to know about voters, not politicians? How can they get involved? Are there any projects you guys are working on next? You've had all these great victories. What are the victories that we can help you guys achieve
Oh,
moving forward?
Yeah, well, right now, I think the most important thing is just, talk to everyone you know. There's this thing called vote tripling. It's not, through us, but it's a program where if you just tell 3 people that you know, and then they tell 3 people, like, just make sure that no one, oops, that's my dog.
My kids are also here.
So one of the things that, messages you can kind of pass along to your entire network is vote early, right? Don't take the chance. There's no other election probably in our lifetime that's more important than this one. So please vote by absentee. It's easy to do. You can vote early, and then you can spend your election day volunteering as a poll worker, or helping, those in your community who can't get to the polls but want to vote in person to the polls, things like that. You can help out with voter protection efforts. Another thing we're looking at is, this community mapping for people to get involved in the redistricting process. We want to make this all about, like, it started with a citizens effort, and it, really needs to stay that way. There's a lot of people, like in politics, like politicians and such, who will be involved, no matter what, because they have a vested interest, but really so do we. And the way our system is set up now, it really puts voters first, but that only works if voters actually get involved. So spread the news about that. And then I think in general, like in Michigan, like you see in other states now, we have like, groups in like Arkansas, we have groups in Colorado that are all like fighting for voter-led initiatives, and so I always say, like, for Voters Not Politicians, we just showed that anyone, and I think this is kind of the, the point that you're trying to get across too, right? Anyone can be active and make a huge impact. And so I would really, I encourage, and everyone who, has any interest whatsoever to please get involved in Voters Not Politicians. We had a policy committee that had no election law experts whatsoever, but we kind of dug in, we got the expertise we needed from, national experts and such, and we wrote a constitutional amendment, right? And now it's like going to change the history of our state. So that's kind of like things that we can do when we unite together. And certainly Voters Not Politicians has really big goals for the future, including a likely initiative in 2022. So yeah, so just, come on and we welcome, everyone to get involved, because it really is about voters. It's us voters taking our power back from politicians.
And that's what we need, because obviously politicians are not popular, and we need citizens to feel empowered that they can make these choices and influence our government and our country and states in positive ways. So thank you so much for your time. I had a great time talking and learning more about what you guys do. We're going to kind of continue our conversation about voting on October 7th, which is also Wednesday, with Livonia City Clerk Susan Nash. So if you're out there, mark your calendars / like the event on Facebook, so you get the reminder to join in on that conversation. We'll learn more kind of about the whole voting process, the absentee. Right now, the Senate had passed a bill to allow clerks to start unpackaging votes early. So we'll see how that progresses in the House. But that's what's going on here at Vote.Run.Serve. Thanks for joining us tonight. Thank you, Nancy, so much. And I'll be in touch. Have a good night.
Good night.